Hello everyone and welcome to What Works X. My name is Nada Sabha and I'm part of the team at KHDA. I will be facilitating today's webinar along with my awesome colleagues Maya and Magnus. First of all, Eid Mubarak to everyone, and we hope that you had a nice few days of your own time and away from online learning. I hope you've come back refreshed and ready for the remaining school term. I would like to start off by expressing my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of our awesome educators in Dubai for being absolute superstars in all of this and for transforming the way you teach in such a short period of time. As What Works X style, we'd like to invite you to log on to menti.com. We'll be using this platform throughout today's webinar to engage with our fantastic audience we have with us today. So may you please go to menti.com and enter the code 895620. And whilst you do that, I'll just go to the slides. So back in 2012, What Works was born, which was a series of events for educators and teachers to share what was working in their schools with other teachers in the Dubai community. What Works X is pretty much the same concept, it's just the platform has changed, and hopefully with this new digital platform, we'll be able to outreach and increase the accessibility for many more teachers to join What Works X. This is our 9th What Works X webinar, and we've had a total of around 1,500 attendees join us for these webinars since What Works X started, which was just about a month ago. So my first question for you on menti.com, going back to your childhood, what did you want to be when you grew up? I know a lot of you work with young children, and this kind of brings you back to that stage when you were young, just like your own students at the moment. So there in the middle in bold, what was teacher, or is now teacher. So I'm glad to see many of you living out your dream to be a teacher, and it's been something you've wished for since you were quite young. Just give you a few minutes to do that, and we can reflect on that word cloud that is developing before our eyes. So the way these word clouds work is that the term that's the most popular is there in bold in the middle. So today I can see we have around 150 people that have joined us on this webinar, and it looks like most of you were wanting to be teachers when you grow up. This is really fascinating, actually. So we've got air hostess, marine biologist, news reporter, computer technician, lawyer, air hostess, astronaut. A couple of astronauts went up to space in the last couple of days. I don't know if anyone's been following that. So yes. Teacher is definitely the most popular so far. Thank you so much for entertaining me with that, and for sharing your aspirations as a 7 or 8-year-old and what you wanted to become in life. I have one other question for you before we do move on to the webinar for today. How can parents keep their young children engaged and entertained during this time? I'm asking this question because it was a request actually from our social media team. Since we've got so many fantastic educators online with us today, particularly early years educators. Parents would love to know how to keep their children engaged and entertained during lockdown or during the situation we have currently. And we'll be sharing some of these ideas on our social media platform with our parents. So would really appreciate any sort of ideas that you may have, if you could just include them on the menti.com platform. So parents being more involved, indoor games, play, let them lead, they are creative. Play with them, tell them real life stories. Actually, that's what I've been doing with my young children. I've been telling them stories when I was a young girl myself, which they find absolutely hilarious. So there's a lot of play-based activities coming through. Compromise with them after doing their lessons. Play indoor games with them. Perhaps bring a pet. Involving them in daily chores, play board games, find young chefs. Some of our children might find a love for cooking, absolutely. Some craft activities. I love that one. No idea really, struggle with it. Yes, it has been a not only transformation for teachers in the way that they teach, but also parents have also had to change things at home and engage their children in continuous learning. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for that, everybody. Really appreciate that. Okay, now moving on. So today's session is how to support the early years during distance learning, and we are honoured to be joined today by David Williams and Claire Martin from Regent International School, who will be introduced shortly by my colleague Magnus. But the structure of today's webinar will be, the presentation will be for about 20 minutes. Following the presentation, we will have a Q&A discussion for another 15 or 20 minutes or so, depending on how much time we have left within this 1 hour of the webinar. So without further ado, I would like to pass on to my colleague Magnus to introduce our presenters for today. Thank you, Magnus.
Thank you, Nada. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is now my pleasure to introduce our presenters, David Williams. He is the head of early years foundation stage and key stage 1 at Regent International School. And the other presenter is Claire Martin. She is the FS1 lead at Regent International School here in Dubai. So David and Claire have been kind enough to put together a presentation for us, which responds to the theme of how to support the early years during distance learning. Now, David has worked in education for over 10 years with a focus on early years education and has worked at Regent International School for six years. He has a degree in education in early years from Liverpool John Moores University, and before he moved to Dubai, David worked as a foundation stage teacher in Wolverhampton in the UK. He is enthusiastic about early childhood education and has a particular interest in making curriculum exciting, challenging, and varied for early years children. Now, Claire, on the other hand, she's been living and teaching in Dubai for 6 years and is on her 4th year of teaching early years FS at Regent International School. Claire is a graduate from the University of Glasgow with a Bachelor of Education with Honours. And Claire believes that children learn best through play and is particularly passionate about enabling classroom environments to create a stimulating space for children to develop a lifelong love of learning. Having studied a degree also in chemistry, Claire loves to engage children in scientific investigations within the classroom. So it is with great interest I now hand over the word to Claire and David and their presentation on early years in times of distance learning. Over to you guys.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and hello everyone. as just mentioned, I'm Mr. Williams, David Williams, the head of early years and Key Stage 1 at Regent International School. And today it's my privilege to share with you distance learning in the early years at Regent International School. May I first start by saying I hope all of you and your families are safe during this time, and thank you to the KHDA for this opportunity for sharing Regent's story. But that is what it is Regent's story. Everybody's got different challenges that they're facing during this time. Different cohorts of parents and children lead to different situations that we've all had to be reactive and proactive in dealing with to make sure we get the best for our children. And the aim, of course, is not to replace conventional teaching. That's never going to be the case, but to support learning during this unique time as best we can. And I saw a quote today actually that I thought kind of summarised it quite well. Technology will not replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers can be transformational. That'd be a really nice way of starting the presentation. So we'll move on. So today's agenda is to understand the challenges that we faced at Regent International School entering into distance learning and what we've implemented to overcome these challenges. To share with you how we deliver distance learning at Regent International School and what this looks like, and to share tips and resources to implement into schools.
So I'm going to start talking about teaching and learning at Regent and pre-distance learning. So what did it look like before we were thrown into this very unusual way of teaching, and a very different way for the children to learn as well. At Regent, our teaching was graded as outstanding, both by external inspections as well as Q&A, by our internal inspections as well. At Regent, we believe that everything that we are teaching the children is child initiated. So if you're walking down the corridors at our school, you will see every classroom will be completely different as the teachers plan and adapt depending on the interests of the children in their class. We try and keep everything very project based and real life context, because we feel that our children are more engaged if it's something they're interested in and they can see a reason for learning that skill. As you can see, our classrooms are set up to encourage independence, to allow the children to use whatever materials that they would like to enhance their learning. We want them to be able to apply the skills that we are teaching them in teacher-led activities and be able to use whatever materials, whatever arts and crafts that they want to develop their skills, to explore and to continue to build their learning.
So obviously when we were faced with this new challenge for all of us, we knew we were going to come across some barriers. Some of these are barriers that we thought we might come across, and some of them are ones that have been added as time's gone on. Parental perception was a really big one at the start. I think that there was kind of a perception that school would be able to maintain the attention of children independently, that they'd be able to access the activities completely independently. And of course, that's just not the case with our youngest learners. It really is a team effort between parents, teachers and the children themselves in order to get the progress required. Progress, of course, was another barrier that we identified. It's very important that we get these children to a point that they can access the curriculum going into FS2 and Year 1 respectively. Independence, we still wanted them to have that independence. We still wanted them to be able to access work by themselves as much as possible and to be able to interact with teachers and peers. Live versus recorded lessons. This is one that really developed as time went on, because we found that there was not a one-size-fits-all model for not just year groups, but our classes as well, because there were a percentage of parents and children that wanted live lessons, and there was a percentage of parents and children that could not access those live lessons for their own personal circumstances, such as they have older siblings that they wanted to give priority to during the morning session and then work with their children later on in the evening. So we had to make it so they had both options, and that's something that's totally refined during the time of distance learning. Assessment as well, we're going to talk later about what we've done for assessment. Well-being being such a huge part of a child's development at this age, and sadly we've never had a time like this where children can't interact with their peers, can't express themselves in front of their teachers and peers, and it's something that we've tried to sort of create an atmosphere where they can still do that. Communication, we're going to talk about how we've dealt with that barrier later on. And accessibility, we were kind of on the front foot with accessibility in that we've had Seesaw embedded in the early years and Key Stage 1 for the past 3 or 4 years, and that's been used to record work in classes, which has then obviously led to making sure that we're able to access e-learning straight away. The issue, of course, was making sure that parents were clued up on how to use it, that the new children to the school knew how to use it, and that work was ready to be accessed. So I think it's time for our Menti question, which should be coming up on the screen shortly. So what part of the early years curriculum have you found most challenging in delivering? And we have some answers already coming in. So we picked these just from discussions that we've had with teachers between literacy, numeracy, maths, science and communication and language. See if we can get some more answers in. So at the moment, science, communication, language. I think for me and Claire, we found communication and language quite a challenge to represent. Oh, we just got a jump there in communication language as well. Go team communication language, that's good to see. But really, really interesting. Science is also very difficult, of course. A lot of families don't have the resources at home, and it's about us sharing with them how we could possibly help them to do that. And literacy. Maths is doing well, and I think I would agree with that. Maths does translate very well over to the online platform. There's plenty of resources and games that you can give to children so that they can still continue to access. What are your thoughts, Claire?
Yeah, we found that by having a weekly science activity, that it's allowed the children the chance to explore even things that we would take for granted, such as making Play-Doh. And we do that with the children, and we give them and we talk about the changes that they would make. So it's something that we would, by giving them the Play-Doh already made, then we're not giving them the opportunity to look at the changes and the science behind how to make it. So something as simple as an activity that we set, such as making Play-Doh, the children are getting that opportunity to explore different textures. They're getting that language as well by looking at the textures of things, the changing of colours, all this language around science as well as around the topic that we're covering. So we're kind of able to assess a lot of different things through our different science experiments. And they're not just science experiments that you would have all singing, all dancing. We've got things that you've got readily available in the house so that all children are able to access these different experiments.
And there's some examples you'll be able to see later on in the videos that we've got to share with you. Okay, we'll go back to the presentation. Thank you very much for your involvement in that. It's really interesting to see. Okay, so we've talked about what teaching and learning looks like in Regent International School pre-distance learning. Now we're going to discuss what it looks like now during this distance learning period. So what does it look like across the foundation stage and how is it monitored? So when we knew we were entering this time, we looked at different aspects that we didn't want to compromise in at all. So there was well-being, as we've discussed earlier, a very, very difficult one during this time, and children not being able to see people that they're used to seeing and not really fully understanding why. Coverage, again, we've still got to get these children prepared for the next academic year and making sure that we do have the coverage in order to get the progress for these children. Accessibility, making sure that all children had access to the hardware and software to access distance learning. Progress, and the other thing was we did not want to compromise on our ethos as much as possible. So we were still project-based learning, we still have a purpose where possible. We always talk about the why, and at Regent International School we always say, you know, as adults, I don't go home and practice my handwriting. I wish I did, I probably should, but I don't go home and practice my handwriting. Sometimes we fall into a trap of expecting children to do work just because it's there. Whereas in actual fact, we found over the past few years, if you give them a reason as to why they're doing this, give them a real life context or a purpose, they're much more likely to engage and engage at a higher level. So we've got some videos later that hopefully will show you some examples of that. Again, we talked about real life context. Core and specialist subjects still to have the same emphasis as the core subjects. So still having PE, music, Arabic, and them still being able to access them to a high level that's quality assured by SLT. And we wanted children to be able to respond themselves as much as possible. So Seesaw has been fantastic for that. We use two platforms. We've got Seesaw, which you can see on the bottom right hand side of the screen there, which really helps with the pre-recorded lessons. And then we're using Microsoft Teams for the live lessons. But it all just kept coming back to that diagram on the left hand side. We were constantly planning, doing, checking and acting by speaking to all stakeholders involved, seeing what their worries were, what they felt worked, what they felt didn't work, and finding a solution and finding a way forward as we progress on this journey. And of course, all work is able to be accessed by SLT and MLT. So we've been in there watching live lessons, quality assuring live lessons, just as we would do in a normal school week. So I'm about to show you a video in a minute. So beforehand, just to explain what you're about to see. So as we said, we use Teams for live lesson input. There are examples of recorded videos down there with Miss Kelly, who's our head of PE, and her video blows my mind. I think it's fantastic. I think if I was a kid at her year, 3 years age, 4 years of age, I would be very engaged by the lesson that you're about to see. And then of course set activities that children can access that aren't just pre-recorded, they are links to other resources on the internet. There's no point reinventing the wheel. If it's there, make sure that we're using these things. So before we enter, we're about to watch a bit of a science lesson in a minute, talking about the evil P. And this is one thing that we've done. We've looked at how we can use text as a way of creating project-based learning. So this is from Super Potato, the book Super Potato. And the children are really engaged with this book, so we base some activities around that. Obviously, we haven't got the privilege of being in a classroom, observing them, making notes, seeing what they're interested in and amending planning from that point of view. So by giving them something to build a project around, we found that's been really engaging.
My goodness, how am I going to save myself and the world from the evil peas in my kitchen?
The evil peas are here. They are so scary, they're just staring at me.
Only I had a superhero to help me. Where will I find a superhero? Where? Oh my goodness, who are you? I am Super Potato, and I've come to save you from the evil peas. You've come to save me from the evil peas? But how will we do that? They are so evil. I have just the plan. All you will need is corn flour, you will need water and a container. Water, corn flour and a container.
Hello boys and girls, today for our PE lesson we are going to go on an animal adventure. We're going to invite animals into our homes to do some animal exercises with us. In each exercise I have 2 questions for you. Question number 1, can you name the animal? And question number 2, how does the animal travel? Is it fast? Is it slow? Does it waddle? Let's get started.
Whoa, can you name my animal friend? Hey, how does this animal travel? Can you name my fluffy friend?
So there's some examples there, and they do know we've used those videos. I'm very impressed. They've been brave enough for us to share that with you. But the time spent on a hook, like you saw in the science lesson, has a huge impact on the learning that takes place after. So really focusing on using pre-recorded videos for hooks has been invaluable. Miss Martin?
So now we're going to have a little look at learning in EYFS during e-learning. So we want to see how the students have demonstrated their learning and how they are sharing it with their teacher. As you can see, we had some great live lessons. We had some great hooks for lessons for the children, but it's how are they going to share that with us to show that they are meeting the objectives that we are setting for them. So we have live sessions with the class teachers. We teach phonics lessons, we have circle times, we talk about the weekend, what they've been doing at the weekend. We encourage parents to upload videos and audio recordings when they're completing their activities. Obviously we love to see pictures, but as a teacher we can't see how the children are going on their journey of their learning on that activity. So we've tried to encourage as much as possible that parents, when they're completing it with them, that they can record it as a video so that we can see. When we're doing things like writing, we're encouraging the parents to write it on paper so that they are coming away from the screen and they're getting a chance to develop their fine motor skills and practice their writing and their handwriting, because as we said, it's something that when they move up to FS2 or to year 1, if they've had one whole term of doing no writing, then it's not going to help them. We have one-to-one assessments with the class teacher so that the children have that one-on-one time with their teacher to show them what they have been learning, even just to talk and to develop their communication and language skills. But it also gives the teacher a good chance to speak to the parents and work with the parents and see how we can help them to help the children. As I said, working alongside the parents to support the children, because as much as we can give them, we are giving the parents questions, we're giving them prompts, resources, and ultimately the parents are having to become the teacher when they're at home. So we want to help them as much as we can to help them to develop as much through their learning as possible. As you will see in the video coming up, when they're doing their independent writing, a little girl in my class, she had a live phonics session where we've been learning tricky words and we've been looking at how to create a sentence. So the dad had been sitting in the phonics session, he'd been sitting watching, and he's taken things that I've been teaching in phonics and he's using them in her independent writing to support her. So we've had to use parents as much as possible to help us, and we couldn't do it without the support of the parents helping us. So I will show you a video of some children in my class and the learning that they've been doing.
Good. After I, am, yeah? Start with a, okay. We leave space, okay. A. Good. I am. Well done, well done. Here now we're gonna write dead. What's the first thing you can hear? Okay, but we want to write it capital letter, Mariam. Okay.
I'm gonna do
the capital D.
Okay, look.
Down and then half circle, yeah? Well done, yeah, Mariam, well done. Okay, dead. After that, good. Good. And then, what's the last thing you can hear? Dead.
Dead.
What's the last thing in dead? The last thing you can hear, there. Yeah, after a? Okay. Round the dinosaur bottom, yeah?
Bottom up to his neck, down to his toes.
Well done, Mariam, well done. Can you show us, Martin? I am dead.
Hi.
Can you tell us what is this thing on the wall?
Net.
Okay, it's the world map, right? Okay, now what we'll do is we will look at these animals and try to find them on the map. Okay? How about we start with the whale?
Whale.
Where can you find whale, Neil?
Just a second. Oh, there you go.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Very good. Now the next one, Neil.
Elephant. Wow, what continent is that, Neil? Very good.
You want to buy the chickpeas first? What does it say up there? How much does it say?
Number 3.
3 coins. Okay, can you give me 3 coins for the chickpeas, please?
1,
Okay. 2. Count them.
3.
3, yes. Okay.
So as you can see, our parents play a big role in everything that we do in our teaching and learning at Regent, especially during our distance learning. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our specialist lessons. Now, our specialists are our teachers that, so like our music teacher, our PE teacher, our Arabic teacher, and a little bit about how they are implementing lessons for our children via distance learning as well. Our children still receive their same lessons as they would as if they're in school. So they get music lessons that they are getting a chance to sing and perform alongside their music teacher. They are creating instruments with things from around the house. They are performing with their brothers and sisters. It's giving them a chance to use their imagination, be creative, all while performing and giving them that confidence. We are doing lots of arts and crafts around Arabic. Our children are obviously still very young, and for a lot of them, Arabic is a second or possibly a third language. So for them, these arts and crafts are really giving them a good hook into learning new sounds and new words within Arabic. Our PE teachers, we are very lucky. We get our PE lessons every week. As you saw, they were taking on the roles of different animals. They've been doing alphabet yoga. They had superhero spinners where they had to make themselves in the shapes of different superheroes. And we're also very lucky that our PE team have been making us daily brain breaks. So the children get a chance to develop their physical development in a variety of different activities. As you can see at the bottom, it was a throwing activity to knock over the bottles. So they're practicing their gross motor skills while also giving them a break from the academic side of distance learning as well. So I'm just going to talk quickly about inclusion at Regent International School for over distance learning. So we obviously have differentiation with our live phonics sessions. We do small group sessions in FS1 where the children are with their teacher and they're learning their new phonics sound for that particular week. It gives us a chance to assess the children and to track how they are doing with their phonics. As well as giving them a chance to work alongside their friends and ask their friends questions and work with them to finish a completed activity. Our children also have our children with additional needs also have one-to-one sessions with a member of the IND team, and these are carried out over Microsoft Teams and Zoom, where the teachers are able to talk to the parents and help give them some strategies and give them some resources, or just to be someone to talk to ask them how best to help support their child at home when they might not be able to access the curriculum as the rest of the class are able to. We have a language program that we, as you can see at the bottom, for our children who have English as an additional language. So these children receive a specialised activity every day, which is helping to build up their vocabulary, their English vocabulary and their communication skills. And this is something that has such a big impact of when the children are in school. So we felt it was vital that we continued this as a daily input every day and with our children at home also, as some of them might not be getting very much English when they're working at home. And we also are reviewing our IEP targets. We're reviewing them with our parents, and we changed it slightly when we moved to distance learning. Instead of having 3 targets, we changed to having 1 target for the teacher and for the parents to work on at home. And we've chosen to go mainly towards more academic targets as they are things that the parents are able to work on with them, with us giving them pointers and resources to help them meet these targets as well. So as we've spoken about the well-being and how important it is for our children and for our staff at Regent, there are a lot of things that we've put in place to make sure that the well-being of our children and our care is just as important now as it always was when we were in school. As you saw in the video, we did show and tell. We do show and tell, we do live show and tell sessions, as well as doing uploaded activities for children to, if they can't access the live sessions, they're able to complete the Seesaw activity and upload it to their class account. This gives the children a chance to talk about things that interest them. As you can see, he was talking about the animals and about the Pacific Ocean, and the amount of learning that comes from this show and tell is unbelievable. We also take daily attendance so that we can speak to parents if we notice that they're maybe not engaging with the content the way that we would want or expect, and we can help put things in place to support them to make sure that they are able to access Seesaw, or if they're not able to access Seesaw, what can we do to help them to make sure the children are still getting the learning that they need for the next year. And we still do our Musician of the Week, a Champion of the Week, and our Spirit of Regent every week as well, where the children, we're celebrating what they can do, and we're celebrating their successes in music and PE, so that the children understand that it's vitally important for them to take part in all their activities. And these certificates really help to get the children involved at taking part. As we spoke about the live assemblies, we have assembly for FS1 and FS2, and the children are able to log in and they can take part live. We have up to 80 children taking part every week, but we also upload it for, as we said, those children who might not be able to take part. We have started to implement ECAs, extracurricular activities, into our weekly Seesaw activities. So the children get the chance to take ownership for their learning and pick things that interest them. So it might be they're not compulsory, we don't expect all children to complete them, but if there's something that we assign and the children really enjoy it, we give them the opportunity to complete those activities as well.
So thank you, Claire. So communication, I think when we're talking about communication during distance learning, there are two aspects to it. There's communication with the child and communication with the parent. So here are some examples, as you can see, along with all the standard examples, such as the phones still work, even though none of us use them anymore. You know, Teams calls, able to use the internal VLE system that our company has, able to use email. On top of that, it's very important that parents are informed on how to support their child. So each week, a weekly overview goes home to parents, highlighting the activities that will take place that day, but also what resources they may need or teaching strategies that they could use. As you saw earlier, the shop that had been set up in the kitchen, what a wonderful, fantastic experience for that child to do that with their mother. However, without them knowing that it's going to take place and the possible resources they may need, this type of learning will not take place. So sending that home has been really, really useful, and we've noticed a real uptake in the creativity of the lessons that's taking place at home. On top of that, we have morning videos from the teacher. Again, not everybody can make these live sessions, so they go up as recorded videos. There's Miss Martin talking through her day, what the children can expect from the day and what the expectations are. Another thing, we've put the audio marking up at the top there, that the teachers respond to the children's work with. And you have to kind of keep in mind during this time, you're not just speaking to the children, you are speaking to the parent as well. And so by being very clear and very precise on what the child's done well and possible next steps moving forward, you're really helping the child and the parent, as well as obviously just making sure that progress is taking place. I think that's pretty much communication. Assessment, we are still assessing. We're not doing any external assessment until next year, but there is she's not normally that quick, but Miss Martin's there in the corner doing a live phonics assessment using a range of resources to make sure the children are still engaged, and as you can see they are. We still need to get a gauge of where these children are, and I know there's not going to be a perfect way of doing assessment, but we need to make sure we're prepared for the next academic year and we're doing everything we can to plug any gaps in learning for these children. So we still see it as a very, very important thing to do. but teacher assessment is key, as it always is. And by being able to mark and feed back to individual piece of work, we're keeping that aspect of learning alive. I certainly think that teaching, that teacher assessment is still the key over anything such as what you're seeing on the screen now. That's evidenced in Seesaw, and as you can see at the bottom there, Seesaw is very, very good at setting up so we can see which learning objectives have been accessed, how many times. When we click on those numbers, we can actually see that work and moderate it, which is a fantastic capability to do. Okay, so we've got some key points to take away. I really can't recommend enough the one-to-one sessions with parents and class teachers for those who are asking for them. They are vital for engagement and understanding from all parties, and I think we noticed a real, not only an uptake, but the quality of what was taking place at home and the expectation levels being raised just after those one-to-one sessions. So if you haven't done those yet, I really would recommend that. It's a fantastic way to engage the community. Use of interactive platforms such as Seesaw to enhance independence when teaching and learning in the EYFS. There are other applications that would do a very, very similar job. What we like about this application is it's very child-centered, so even the camera has buttons where the children can take their own, picture their own work and evidence in their own folders. Resource bank of websites. Miss Martin's put together a resource bank of websites that we use, and you'll be able to access them after the session. The weekly overview sheets are certainly something that I would take up. They've again really led to a heightened understanding and made sure that children are accessing those key lessons that they need to. And support for parents, just being there, just being able to communicate. And the other thing that we've noticed a real positive story is the use of Microsoft Teams and Zoom, or any live call feature that you use to focus on well-being and the school community. So we've had feedback about assemblies saying that it makes it feel like a community again. And during this time, that's very, very important for everybody to feel that way. So that's lovely. But then on top of that, show and tells and anything to really bring home that well-being agenda, which is obviously tough to meet at the moment. There are the takeaways, which we will share with you after the session. And I'd like to thank you all. At the beginning of the session, it was lovely to see the amount of times that play was mentioned in how to engage children. We know with like-minded professionals, it was really, really nice to have the opportunity to share with you, and hopefully we've been some help on your journey.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you, Claire, for this really informative presentation. Thank you. Some fantastic examples. We're now going to move on to the Q&A bit of this webinar. And as you all know, in the registration forms that you all filled out prior to this webinar, many of you have submitted some questions that I'd like to pose to David and Claire, and I'm also going to include some of the live questions that I can see on the right-hand side that you're posting. So let's kick off with the first question. If I could ask this to David, please. The headline is Improvements on the Horizon. Have you seen a difference in shy kids, hyperactive kids, highly creative kids? Are they suddenly doing better with remote learning than they were doing in the physical classroom?
This is a really, really interesting question because, yes, we have seen this. Thank you for asking. That's a really, really fantastic question. We've actually had examples of children who struggle socially in the physical classroom, who all of a sudden are able to express themselves in these fantastic verbal ways and able to communicate with their peers and their teachers in ways that possibly we didn't know. So I think that, you know, there's positives in everything. I think there is a positive in this. And even though they would still need to learn those real life skills to access social interactions outside of distance learning, it's something to reflect on what we can integrate from this period when we go back to the physical school in order to aid those children further, because it has been eye-opening. So certainly I can comment on those more shy, reserved children being more confident during this time, and it's something I didn't expect.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. And now a question for Claire, please. Regarding the title is Assessment in Early Years. We have a question here regarding how can assessment be best applied to early year students? Shall early years assessment be viewed differently? And when is the best time? So a lot of concerns here regarding children who are struggling with being attentive or focused during distance learning. And also, if you could please reflect on what's the best solution when parents sit next to their students most of the class?
So yeah, we find that teacher assessment is still key with the daily activities. So the use of the videos and the voice notes help to support the teacher assessment. We understand that there's obviously only so much we can do when we're not physically with them, but we find a lot of the live sessions, when we tell the parents in advance that this is what you're going to need, the parents will have the resources ready. And we set the expectation with the children and the parents as well very early on. Like, the children know that when they're in a live one-to-one session with myself, then they know that they are in school. So everything that we had set and the boundaries we had set when we were in the classroom have carried on into the live sessions as well. So with the small groups, the logging in on time, like certificates to support engagement, and we found that, or personally, I found that we've not had too many issues with keeping the children engaged, because they're so excited to see their friends and their teachers that the live sessions really keep them working and motivated to listen. We also did a one-to-one end of term assessment with all our children and the teachers. We created an assessment. We worked as a team in FS1. We worked as a team to create this assessment, very similar to the GL assessment that we would use if we were in school. But since we're not, we created our own, and we spoke to the parents and asked them for the resources they would need. And by doing so, the parents were very much on board with supporting us, but we made it clear that we needed the children to be doing the assessment and not having the help of the parents. So it's kind of a balance of the parents supporting us to meet the objectives, but also seeing what the children are able to do independently.
Thank you so much, Claire. And another question, please, for you. Keeping body and mind at ease, encouraging movement. Share with us some activities you apply with the little ones during breaks. What gets them excited? Some tips and tools, please.
Yes, so as I touched on briefly, we use brain breaks as a key tool for getting the children up and moving. Also, it's a chance for the children to see their other teachers. They're not just seeing my face every day, they're seeing their PE teachers from around the school. It's not just their PE teacher, it's from the whole PE team. So they're up and they're about and they're doing these activities which they love. We also, all our activities that we're setting are very much child initiated and they're very active activities. So we don't feel that our children are sat in front of the computer too much. We obviously have our teaching input at the beginning where they will see us or a recorded lesson, and then they go away and they do their activity. So we don't find that getting them up and about is too much of an issue with them, but at the same time we give them lots of ECAs, we give them websites that I've sent, such as Cosmic Kids Yoga, Just Dance, things that the parents can put on for 5 minutes to give the children a chance to burn off some energy and have a break between the academics.
Thank you, Claire. And I can see here from our live question is a similar question to this one, screen time. So this one for you, David, what is the ideal screen time for kids of this age group?
Well, we're in a very extreme circumstance here. And of course, in an ideal world, there's the consensus in America, the consensus in the UK, I know with the NHS, is that it would be an hour a day for children our age. That is going to be very difficult to manage at this time. So I think it's really more about, can you make it so the children access the activity and then move away from the screen in order to complete it, and just being so mindful of that. So obviously it'd be very difficult, I think, to meet that small amount of time. But what can we do to make sure, going back to Claire's previous answer, that we are getting them active, getting them moving and getting them away from the screen in order to complete their work?
Thank you, David. Claire, if you could please answer this one. Why do you love working with young children? The rewards are many when working with the early years field of education. What do you want to say to anyone interested in teaching, in the teaching profession of young children? What are some qualities that you should have?
So I think working in the early years, you can't deny it's a very rewarding job. You're truly the first person that a child is going to meet when they're starting their educational journey. You're the first teacher that they've ever known. You're all they ever know about school. So when they think about school, they associate it with you. So I think you have the ability to shape their thirst for learning, or giving them the opportunities to make them want to come to school, to make them want to take part. I think personally, as an early years practitioner, in distance learning, I think patience is key. I think from both ourselves and the children, I think I forget that my children are so little. and we're expecting them in a completely unprecedented time to take on teaching with me on a computer. So I've had to become more patient. They've had to become patient in learning that I don't know the answers to everything. I think also never having a limit on what you think children can do. I've learned that, especially during distance learning, that children can achieve so much over and above what we think just by giving them the opportunity to explore, and not giving them a limit, not saying that this is, I want you to complete this, this is the box, please complete it. We're giving them the opportunities to go and look at a whole variety of things, and some of the stuff that, as you could see in the show and tell, he's talking about the Pacific Ocean and Africa. These children are 4 and they've got the opportunity to really explore the world around them. And for me, I think being willing to work as part of a team, knowing you don't have all the answers, it's something that I've massively taken on over this period of time, having to really rely on the other members of my team because we all have different strengths. And I think that if you can do that, then you're able to take on distance learning.
Thank you, Clara. I agree with that. We're now going to move on to some of the live questions. If I could just get some rapid answers from you, kind of short with time, but there is one question here. During live assembly, are the children on mute?
Yes.
They are, yes.
They are.
But we control it so that we'll quite often leave an activity the week before. So we'll say, okay, we would love to see you do this next week, and we do quizzes and things like that, where then we can control it and unmute certain children.
How many lives? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So we just try and get as much participation as we would in a normal assembly.
Yeah. There's another one asking, how many live sessions, question mark, how many seesaw activities per day?
So seesaw would be set, but live sessions would not be, because it depends each day on what the need is. So we have our live phonics assessment, we have our live phonics sessions, we have our show and tell sessions. So sometimes it could be up to 2-3 times a day with assembly. Other days it could be once a day. So it's just or less if needs be. So it's just working on what the learning objectives are for that day. And set in FS1, Claire?
So set in Seesaw, they will have a teach, so they'll either have math, science or writing, and they will have each day, and they will have phonics. Every child will have a phonics activity assigned each day. We will have guided reading at the beginning of the week with some activities, and we also assign some expressive arts activities, some communication and language activities, as well as some number and letter formation, so that the children are continually practicing things that we would naturally do every day in school as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Claire. We have another question. Will the formative assessments done when children are with the teachers in school and when the children are at home carry the same weightage? I know we touched on this before. Someone asked, so how do we assess children learning at home?
Yeah, you know, you have to take that data for what it is, but it's just a capture point. It's a point for you to spend with that child doing the assessment. And you know, if nothing else, you can use it as a teaching opportunity. And I think that's the value of it. Yes, it's not 100% perfect. It never will be in this environment. However, doing it is no harm. It's not like you're sitting down in a formalized test way. The children are just loving the chance to engage with their teacher. And again, if it doesn't go to plan, you can use it as a teaching opportunity.
Thank you. I can see reflection here as well. There's somebody saying something quite beautiful. As an early years teacher, my biggest challenge has been the stresses that parents have been putting on the children. They often sit with their child and instead of supporting them, they are hasty and attempt to hurry up the child or show disapproval if the child answers incorrect. As a result, when the confident learners have shown a dip in confidence and or appear stressed when it comes to learning, which they never did in the classroom. It's been a dual effort teaching the kids and also being parents. That's quite true.
Yeah, really interesting. As we said before, you know, each school, each group of children and parents, it's different challenges. We've been very lucky with how supportive our parents have been, and hopefully that continues.
I think that we've found that if that is the case and we can see it that it's a particular child has dropped in confidence, or we will quite often do a one-to-one session with just the parent and the child, and we'll ask the parent to be sitting there so that they can listen how we would maybe conduct the lesson, so that the parents feel that they've got the tools necessary to do it. And it quite often tends to be in things like writing and phonics. As parents, English might not be their first language, so they don't feel confident in teaching phonics and writing. So by seeing us model it to the children, exactly how we would in the classroom, they then feel that they can then take that away and use it more confidently. So it's sometimes teaching the parents also how to teach the children.
And again, it goes back to that communication, giving them the tools to be able to support their children. But yeah, it's a very interesting reflection.
Yeah, thank you. David, Claire, the time is up. The end of this Q&A session. Thank you both so much. I'm now going to hand over to Nada. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Magnus. Thank you, David and Claire. Heartfelt thanks to both David and Claire for sharing their journey with the early years during distance learning. We hope that you were able to take away a few key takeaways, or that you have been inspired to try something new. Now, I'm just mindful of the time, and I understand those that may need to go, that's perfectly okay. But those people that have still got another 5 or 6 minutes to spare, would love for you to take part in our feedback session, which we will use menti.com for again. So you can see on your screen there now, just would love your feedback, and I'll just bring it up briefly. Would love your feedback on how satisfied you were with the quality of the content of the webinar, the structure, and the presenters and their preparedness in responding to questions, please. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to respond to that question, please. With each of these webinars, we are trying to improve them as we go along, so your feedback is very much, we're very grateful for your feedback and appreciate your honesty. And all comments are anonymous, so feel free to share your honest feedback. We actually had 191 participants on this webinar, so it just shows how important this topic is to many of our educators, particularly in the early years, and that this is an area that people would like support or perhaps validation that they're not on the right path as well. Okay, thank you everybody for your comments there. We'll move on to our next feedback question, which is, what did you enjoy most about the webinar today? And feel free to import a couple of ideas there, that what it is that you found most beneficial and what we should continue doing more of. So absolutely, the examples, the practical examples that both Claire and David provided, the ideas around assessing progress of students in the early years, the Q&A part, fantastic, and thanks to everyone that engaged in our Q&A section. So thank you for all your questions, and those people that did ask questions, sorry we did not have time to respond to those, but I hope you'll be able to go back to the presentation and perhaps review the presentation, and perhaps you'll find your answers there. So the new ideas, the different activities used to engage the children, knowing that we are on the right track. That's something key that has come up. We've had such great engagement and such interest in these webinars, and as I said before, sometimes you just need that validation as a teacher that you are doing things right, or that you feel that you are on the right path. And it's great to have that validation from other educators in Dubai. The video shared by parents about how their kids are learning at home and the positive attitude of the presenters. Yes, I particularly like that. You know, it was interesting what the presenters were saying about parent involvement. And I read this article the other day from the UK, where a survey of 2,000 people in lockdown across the UK have found a growing respect for teachers. And there's been a huge surge in the interest by parents wanting to pursue a career in teaching. So I found that quite interesting, and just wanted to share that with you. But yes, that huge respect for our educators is definitely has been brought to the forefront of people's minds now. I certainly, as a parent, appreciate even more the wonderful teachers that teach my children. So different activities and routines during distance learning, knowing that we're on the right track, activities used to keep children engaged, the PE activities. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll just move on to, I think I've got 2 more feedback questions. So now that you've listened to both Claire and David, what will be the first thing you plan to do to improve distance learning provision for the early years? No plans to change your approach? Perhaps you are doing similar things and this has given you validation and you feel that there is no room to change. Or increase communication with parents so that they feel better supported and part of the learning process. Or is it balance between live and recorded sessions? Or is it design learning experiences which engage children through projects and purposeful activities? Or is it establish well-being opportunities for children to access from home? Or provide children with a choice of activities, projects away from the screen, or other? So we'll just give you a few moments to respond to that question. So designing learning experiences which engage children through projects and purposeful activities. That seems to be taking the lead at the moment. I liked what Claire and David was saying about not only empowering the students, but also the parents and having open lines of communication and support with parents. I think that was a really great point that they highlighted during their presentation. And provide children with a choice of activities or projects away from the screen. Actually, one of my children's teachers provides extra class dojo points for children that handwrite some of their responses to the learning activities. So I found that quite interesting as well, just to get kids away from the screen, which can be a challenge when you're so reliant on the technology. All right, thank you so much. So for those, I know only one person has selected other, but I'd love to hear from you. In what other ways do you plan to improve or further support the early years during distance learning? I'd love to hear a bit more in detail as to what you will introduce starting from tomorrow or from next week. What are new things that you plan to bring into the distance learning provision to support your early years students during distance learning and the remaining weeks of the school year. The one-on-one feedback with students and also with parents. I loved how Region engages with parents and provide that open communication lines with parents to show that the support is there and to help assist parents to help facilitate the learning of their children. Reduce curriculum. Yes, less is more. Absolutely. Extra support with video links and tips, and I think that's particularly with parents. Provide extra worksheets or extension activities to those that would like to do more learning or be challenged. Hands-on activities. Having more videos, particularly the PE videos, and with specialist lessons as well. More indoor activities to keep them engaged and look after their own well-being. That's absolutely essential. And I can see a lot of feedback there around providing parents with additional communication and support. It is a three-legged stool at the moment. It's the student, the parent, and the educators, and you can't have one without the other. And that's particularly being highlighted in today's webinar. More game-based learning, fantastic. Thank you so much for all of that. It seems that you've taken a lot from this session, or that you've been inspired to try something new, which is fantastic. Okay, and that's it for our feedback. I'd just like to bring your attention before we do say goodbye to the In This Together website that KHDA has developed over the last month or so. This is basically a repository of free resources available to students, parents, and educators that we've found both internationally and locally as well. And on this website, you will find a list of upcoming What Works X webinars, and you will also be able to access this recorded webinar along with previously recorded webinars over the last 4 or 5 weeks that you'll be able to download and review in your own time as well. So please feel free to go to this website and see what's coming next and be able to download not only this webinar, but also previous webinars as well. And I'd just finally like to leave you with this. We had the Heart School from New Zealand visit us a couple of months ago, just before all of this started. And they've sent me this lovely little poem that I'd like to share with you. Lockdown love. Love where you are, find joy in your space. Obey all the rules so wisely in place. Care for each other in your bubble and out. Keep up the kindness if it's what it's about. Do what grounds you and keeps you okay. Observe your thoughts, they're leading your way. Welcome each day and whatever crops up. Nature's still open, keep filling your cup. I find that quite powerful, and wanted to leave you with those lovely words from our friends from the Heart School in New Zealand. So for now, from my home to yours, be safe, and we hope to see you at our next webinar, which is on Thursday at 4 o'clock. We conduct these What Works X webinars every week on Monday and Thursday at 4 p.m. So again, be safe. Goodbye. Thank you so much, everybody.